What makes the achievement of emotional sobriety so difficult is the habits we have, the patterns we have in our behavior, the habitual ways that we've come to think about things. We have to really become aware of those things in order to challenge them, because the consciousness that has created a lot of the problems in our life cannot solve it, cannot change things. So what happens is the first step is waking up. Many months ago now, we decided that we would take a journey through the 12 steps, but from a perspective of looking at how the steps help us develop and promote an authentic and true self-esteem that is grounded in humility. And so Roger, who's trained and came out to California actually to train and study and treat with Dr. Brandon, is our resident self-esteem expert. And he usually brings in a lot of Brandon's perspective on that. And then Thom Rutledge and I and Herb Kagan, and Herb usually kicks this thing off, but he's not able to attend tonight. So I'll just say a few things, and then Thom's he's gonna step in and kick us off this series, which I'm excited to hear. But I want to put this in the context of what I started to talk about a long, long time ago, is how each step builds on the step before it, right? They're interdependent and sequential. And that's why it's very important to work them in order, because you get a very, very specific therapeutic effect from working these steps in order. They build kind of a momentum in our life, right? Now, we talked about steps 6 and 7 as being the pivot steps, right? And building a new relationship with ourselves, right? And what we've done to do that is that we've had to challenge the very foundation of our life. And oftentimes when we do that, we see that our life was based on a set of concepts that we dedicated ourselves to actualize, which really separated us from who we really are. And no life can work if we're disconnected from our true self. So the bigger picture here in terms of what the steps are doing is helping us recover our lost true self. That's I think a wonderful way to start to think about the steps in a general therapeutic sense. Specifically, what happened in step 6 and 7 is we started to pivot towards the best possible attitude towards our personal growth, towards our shortcomings, towards the issues that we needed to deal with. Then, as the steps so wonderfully do, now the next 2 steps are pivoting towards the best possible relationship with others. But step 10 is really a continuation of developing that best possible attitude with others. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. This requires the work we've done earlier, which is now increasing our self-awareness, expanding our consciousness, taking responsibility for ourselves, and developing a practice of self-examination. That's what we've learned, and that's what we're bringing to step 10. So with that brief intro, I will invite Thom in here and turn it over to you, Thom.
I am here. It's and Alan, you weren't here the last time I did this, and I began by doing an impersonation of you telling about how the steps all work together, and I think I just did a beautiful job of that. I would just do a little bit of that right now, which is like Alan Berger. This is me being Alan Berger. Okay, the first step is number 1. All right, so that's the first one, and what happens is you get in the first step and you sit there and you realize, oh shit, man, it's like powerless, it's bad, and then but after you get that and then you've been there a while, step 1 says, hey man, you're just loitering, you're just sitting around here, you need to get some energy up and you need to get over there to step 2, and step 2 is waiting for you and you're late. And I'll tell more about that later, but that's sort of a little bit of my impersonation of Alan putting it all together for us. And by the way, Alan, you helped me figure something out about my physical health. When you said how the pivot steps are 6 and 7, I realized when we were doing those, I twisted my ankle. And so that was I'm seeing so many things are coming to light for me in this process, and I appreciate that. I know that I'm not the only one. Everybody is learning so much about ourselves. Okay, well, I am Thom. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm a recovering asshole. I'm a recovering self-hater. I'm a recovering control freak. I know that because one time a few decades ago, I came home from work, and I saw a book on the coffee table that my wife was reading that said How to Live with Control Freaks. And pretty sure it wasn't an introspective journey for her. She was trying to figure out what to do with me. So I like the idea of, as I've gone through my life, and my wife in recovery, that I accumulate more and more of a list of things I'm recovering from. I encourage people to do that. Is their thing, because I think of recovery is there's two directions of recovery. There's recovering from what is toxic to us, and that's everything from substances to behaviors to people to situations. But we recover from those things so that we can move to the second definition of recovery, which is what Alan was just talking about: recovering of the recovering of our authentic self, the recovering we talk about it a lot nowadays. I think Alan, maybe, I can't remember if you started this before, but I love the idea that it's an excavation. I have one of my little nutshells somewhere says just right beneath who you are not, you will find who you are. And very often, as we're working to discover who we are and get to our authentic self, which step 10 is, so it is amazing and pivotal to that, is this is just a really, really key place. Now, by the way, I was working with clients right up to pretty much the last minute until I had to get dinner and come in. So I know you're used to me. Everybody's used to me being completely prepared, and with slides and all that stuff. But I may not be tonight. So bear with me on my maybe my apparent disorganization. But okay, but I do work well from notes in this group. So let me go. I'm just going to start by reading actually the first paragraph in one sentence from the 12 and 12, because I think it'll give us a great place to launch off. First of all, I'll read the step. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. It is, I call it the busy step. This step keeps me busy, because and I think it should, and if it doesn't keep you busy, then you may want to take another look, because you may be missing some things. This begins: as we work the first 9 steps, we prepare ourselves for the adventure of a new life. I love how he writes this. But when we approach step 10, we commence to put our AA way of living to practical use day by day in fair weather and foul. I love that too. It's like, yeah. And I love, because this is the place, and this, I'm just a sucker for anything that leads us to talk about daily practice. But this is the place where we are stepping in. We've been working on ourselves. We've been introspective. We just keep digging in. We keep doing this stuff. We begin with the steps just before 10. We begin to look at how we've affected others and what we can do about that. And in step 10, there is this integration of our introspective journey and our intrapersonal journey and our interpersonal life. And it's like, we're seeing how it all fits together here. And so what he says here, what Bill says here, is that then comes the acid test. And see, I don't know how so many of us, and myself among them, have missed the whole concept of emotional sobriety until Alan Berger woke me up with this, because it's all about that. It's like then comes the acid test. Can we stay sober, keep in emotional balance, and live to good purpose under all conditions? That's emotional sobriety. I mean, that's what that is. It is that's being centered. That what you call, Alan, the what do you call it? The balance thing? The
emotional center of gravity.
Center of gravity. That's it. Yeah, exactly. So this is a bit more here. It's like a continuous look at our assets and liabilities. I think it's really important for us as we begin this step to know that an inventory, especially people like me who are in recovery from self-condemnation. An inventory does not just mean finding the things that are fucked up about myself. And it's about, it's about, I think we've also in this group defined humility as reality, is the idea of, no, we need, if we are really being a responsible human being, we have to be able to acknowledge our shortcomings, the things that mistakes we've made, but we also have not just a right, but a responsibility to own what we have done well. And some of those things we haven't, have not done, it's like learning anything. I've not done it well. I've not done it well. I, did it well one day, not done it well. And with practice over time, now I am doing it well on a regular basis, and so we try to move to consistency, to where ultimately the language I use for my clients a lot of times is what we want our practice to be is not consistent, but constant. That because consistent is still a little bit too open, I think, for me. I need to know that this is my constant practice. And then the other piece I want to read here is just got a little bit farther down that paragraph, because Bill talks about those other people that that we don't understand. The ones, I guess, I always say they're the ones who order a drink and then they let the ice melt in it, and I'm going, what the fuck did you order the drink for? Or they're the people who do something, they make a mistake and they don't beat the crap out of themselves. What he refers to as the people who basically have some wisdom to begin with. For the wise have, he's talking about the others than us. For the wise, WISE have always known that no one can make much of his life until self-searching becomes a regular habit, until he, she, they, it is able to admit and accept what they find, and until they patiently and persistently try to correct what is wrong. This is where I would just say, as we begin step 10, that step 10 is pretty much familiar with the Superman stories. It's like step 10 really takes us into a place that's kind of like bizarro world, where everything's backwards from what we thought it was. We thought, we thought it was all about keeping it together, showing nothing but strength. Don't let anybody know, don't show your vulnerabilities. Just not okay. It's not okay to make mistakes. And if and the whole perfectionism thing is the latest, your greatest expectation or your greatest achievement becomes your constant expectation. All of that has been valued in our whole culture as what it's like to be successful and great. It's, if somebody just came in cold to this meeting and listened to this kind of stuff, it's like, what are we valuing here? We're valuing vulnerability. We're a bunch of people who often talk about how, we laugh about it a lot of times, but we also just honestly talk about how we fuck things up, but not in a way of beating ourselves up, just acknowledging the truth about our fragile, imperfect human nature. And it's like, if I think about it, it really is the opposite of the world I grew up in terms of what we were supposed to be valuing. And so I have to remind myself that every now and then, because when I start with a new client who, and a lot of my clients, because of the work I've done for all these years, are already familiar with recovery, or they're already in recovery, something like that. But every now and then I get new clients that are not familiar with any of this stuff. And I do remind myself that to begin, just to assume that they understand that being vulnerable, talking about, what's really going on with them, or from, I don't start off with I certainly don't begin with stories of, what a screwball I am, because that just might not make it. I remember one time I did make a mistake. I was talking to somebody and she said, client, this was years ago, and she said, man, I really appreciate you don't use a lot of jargon in your therapy with me. And I said, oh yeah, well, I was still drunk during graduate school, so I never actually showed up to learn it. And I looked up, and it was like I'm pretty good at judging these things, but deer in the headlights, I had told the wrong person that. It was like, oh, I just, her jaw dropped. I was just thinking, oh crap. What I just admitted to her is that I'm not qualified. I'm not trained. And so I began to make amends immediately, and we began to work our way back up. The last thing I want to say, and I'll turn it over to other folks, but the other thing, one of the things to launch us off into step 10 is, it's one of the things that Bill says in here is he talks about, I want to say, he talks about how many people, will talk about people who do regular inventories and deep inventories. And he says, people ask, aren't these joy killers, just time consuming things that just kind of oh, let's all just look at how much we screwed this things up. And he has I never picked this sentence out until tonight when I was rereading this. And he says, the emphasis on inventory is heavy only because, and this is, I got my attention, only because a great many of us here never really acquired the habit of accurate self-appraisal.
Yeah, there it is.
And so the idea is you don't have to go off to retreats 4 times a year to go dig deep into this stuff. What you need to be doing is you need to be doing it every day of your life. And one of the silly little images I give people to think about is how often we fall for what I call the lie of compartmentalized time, and it works with a lot of those saboteurs in our heads. And the lie of compartmentalized time works like this: if I screw something up by 2:00 in the afternoon, now the saboteur in my head says, that's it, day's gone, I got you till the rest of the, if it's drinking, if it's being responsible for myself, getting something done, that's all, got it. If I fuck up on a Thursday, lying compartmentalized tab says, well, we'll start again on Monday. And if I screw up in November, they say, well, we'll wait till the first of the year. It's like, so often we find ways I know this is true for me, of postponing even the simplest little things that we can do. And so one of the images, the silly little images I use to help people remember this is, if you're walking along the street and if you fall down, you do not sit there or lie there and say, well, it's 4:00 in the afternoon, I'm thinking I'll just get up tomorrow. So you just stay where you lay. You don't do that. We don't sit there and say, well, I've fallen down on a Friday, so I'll get up on a Monday. What do we do? It's our very human nature. And that's what we have to do psychologically. We get up as soon as we can. Be sure nothing's broken, but, brush yourself off. By the way, in terms of making amends, if you knock someone else over while you were falling, help them up, and then move on. And I'll just say, in terms of turning that around, the idea of getting rid of where you take that inventory day to day, moment to moment. I had a client in one of my eating disorder programs years and years ago that we were talking about this, and she said this wonderful thing that always has stuck in my head. She said, I finally figured out that I can count 24 hours from any time of the day.
Oh, that's nice.
What she meant was, if I screw up at 3:15, I'll start now, and there's a 3:15 coming around in 12 hours and then 24 hours. So we're going to get it that way. And I like the idea that we can restart any of this whenever we need to, not to use that as an excuse to screw it up, but to say, no, I really can do that. And that's what I need to do, instead of postponing my getting up, making the amends I need to make, and acknowledging the truth about myself. And that's all this is. It's acknowledging the truth about yourself on a regular basis as a part of your practice.
Yep.
That's what I got.
It's wonderful. All right, let's all join Thom here in spotlight.
Hey, Raj.
Hey, Thom. Hey, Al.
Hey.
Good to see you guys.
Hey. Well,
you want to go ahead, Al?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Tom, I got some bad news for you.
All right.
Okay. And I usually don't
Right.
start this way, but tonight I really need you.
Mhm.
Tom got it laid on him about 2 hours ago that he was going to
Mhm.
be asked to lead the
Mhm.
meeting or the
Mhm.
workshop, I should say, tonight. And joking back and forth as he and I do by email sometimes, he said that he was preparing to throw an interception on his first play from scrimmage if he was going to be asked to quarterback the meeting tonight rather than be the third string.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, Tom, you messed it up bad, man. You did not throw an interception. Try as you wanted to. You did
Thank
not
you.
throw an interception. You threw a touchdown, man.
No,
I
thank
just,
you, Roger.
I loved what you had to say, man,
Thank you.
and the way you said it and how you blend in your personal
Mhm.
experience so much,
Mhm.
along with what,
Mhm.
what Bill W is writing about here.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Thank you.
No, thanks sincerely. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
I just love the metaphor you gave of falling down on the sidewalk. And do
Mhm.
we just stay there and say, well, I'm just going to stay here through the night and wait until tomorrow morning, or heck, if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe just wait till tomorrow afternoon to get up again. I mean, who does that, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
but I could relate completely to the idea that I don't restart myself a lot of the time in the present moment or shortly thereafter when I've gotten in a bad mood or when I've got that negativity toward myself or others going on in my head. I love the way you put it. It's not that we just stay stuck in that spot. We delay moving forward. We delay taking action. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. And the effect of that for me is I can just get into a real bender of a bad mood, right? Depression or anxiety. Because
Me too.
in my passivity and in my inaction, which in a weird way is still like me doing my will or my willfulness, right? Rather than thinking about what my higher power or my best self would have me do.
Mhm.
So it just lends itself to going deeper and deeper into a funky place, right? Into an anxiety filled or depressed or just self-discouraged kind of place. So I just love that metaphor that you
Yeah.
get for that process. I often think, and I often mention to my clients that in a lot of ways, I don't feel that different than I remember feeling when I was 8, when I was 15, when I was 21. A lot of the same thoughts go through my head in certain situations. A lot of the same feelings that are related to those thoughts, come up for me, whether it's excitability or happiness, or on the other side, depression or anxiety. But the thing that has changed most for me, as you talk about it a lot, Alan, is I respond to those thoughts and those feelings most of the time in a different way than I did during those earlier periods of my life. My actual first experience, the first feeling that comes up if I'm driving my car and somebody violates one of my rules, right? About how, and I got a million of them, about how other people are supposed to behave, or if I'm interacting with somebody and they violate one of my rules about, how they're supposed to be behaving or how they're supposed to be speaking. It doesn't matter. I got rules for every context, right? I got shoulds and out the yin yang. Okay.
Yeah.
But the difference is that more of the time than I used to, I recognize that's my own bullshit. I recognize, not always. Sometimes I live out my BS as, intensely and as committed a way as I used to do when I was younger. But more of the time, I just recognize those rules and all those shoulds and all those conditions as like, that's just me. That's just all the stuff I developed and internalized to try to feel safer in the world, to try to feel superior to other people. And what's helped a lot with that for me is that self-acceptance that you guys hear me talk about so much. You know, I stopped feeling so bad about all that stuff that showed up in me. I started trying to understand it better and what the sources of it were in my life. And little by little, it's a process, not an event. As Herb likes to say, I was reading through his 12 steps to spiritual awakening today, you know, in his comments about step 10, and he has a lot of good things to say about it. So I just wanted to put that piece in, that a lot of me trying to monitor myself throughout the day, and I do a lot of that. That's how it goes for me. I do reflect a lot on my behavior and where I'm falling short of who I want to be. It's not so much anymore about who I think I should be, but it's more just who I wish I was, who I want to be. And taking care of stuff in real time with other people, it's a really good feeling. If I have the awareness I need, which I still often don't, right, in terms of my impact on other people. But if I see it and I'm able to recognize it, or somebody thankfully brings it to my attention, and I can not get possessed by my defensiveness about it, it's a really good feeling to just take ownership of, wow, thank you. I had no idea that I had come across that way to you, or that I had done that with you. So that's really all I wanted to add. It's an hour by hour, minute by minute. I love how you put it's a constant process. It's not just a consistent process. And of course, I fail miserably throughout the day, a lot of the time, at doing that self-monitoring, right? It's not about, I mean, you know, Bill says this in the chapter. It really is about practice. It's not about perfection. You know, it really is.
The other thing is it's a double winner. It's a double win there because when we recognize the mistakes or we could have done better and then we make the change, we make the amends, the amend means change, not to apologize. We amend ourselves. But people like you and I do it without wasting our energy, beating the crap out of ourselves, which is a self-indulgent act. You know, it's like that's a win too. So the idea that it's not just about saying I'm, you know, because I've been acknowledging, as I think you have too. I've been acknowledging how much I fuck up all my life, but I've done it in a way that is not responsibility. It's really as a play to get other people to you know, rescue me.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
I just wanted to say that yeah, when we can own that stuff without you know, condemning ourselves, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. We can own our poor behavior. The way I talk about it a lot is I can own my poor behavior, again, imperfectly, when I am aware of it, without condemning myself as a person. Yes. Without getting on the hate myself as a person bandwagon, which I used to do a lot more of. And still, any given day, any given moment, I'll go there, right? I'll go there. Yeah. So Alan, go ahead.
So, you know, I was sitting here reflecting. I mean, look, it's such an important skill to develop, this self-examination. And the truth of it is, it really starts in step 1 by admitting our powerlessness and looking at our unmanageability, right? And then it continues on in step 4, making a searching and moral fearless moral inventory of ourselves, right? Step 4. Then in step 8, we're doing what? Making a list of all persons we've harmed. So you see, what we've started to do is we've developed over time, through a very systematic effort, developing this skill, this capacity for self-examination. Now, all along, one of the things that we talk a lot about that's such an important element of emotional sobriety is curiosity. It's going, hey, what's going on here? You know, what's happening here? How come I feel uncomfortable in this situation? How come I don't feel settled? Now, this is the other important thing that's happening here in step 10 is it's an ongoing effort to not build up unfinished business. You see, when we don't take care of something and we don't address it, it's not like that goes away. In psychology, there's a thing called the Zeigarnik effect. And it's when you leave an examination, what do you think of? Do you think of all the ones you got right? No, you think of the ones that you missed, because we are wired to move towards completion. We're wired to finish things. We're wired to have a resolution. And when we don't do that, these things back up inside of us. Oftentimes, many of us carry a couple duffel bags of these unfinished situations around, and all of them are draining your energy, because every unfinished situation still has all of this energy bound up in the incompletion and the unresolved issues that are related to it. So this is a very important mental health practice. Step 10 is like flossing your teeth, right? Kind of a thing, right? It's really making sure that you're taking care of yourself. You're not building up this unfinished business in your life, because it's really going to take away from, what's going on and how you're able to function in the here and now. So those just a few comments. I'll have more when it's my turn to lead. So thank you, Thom. You did a fantastic job. So let's
Thank you.
hand it off to
Appreciate
Thom
it.
Potash.
Yeah, Thom, great job. I was when I saw Herb wasn't going to make it today, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to be joining in, and then because then I heard you weren't, and then back in. So, and I didn't prep, which is usually the best way to approach it. Is coming in cold. What I found out over time and didn't know as this transformation was happening was that practicing the 10-step examination and addressing harms done on a regular basis really led to an improved self-esteem. Like we were tying this back to self-esteem. I didn't realize it was this really cycle through the steps in a mini version. It's like, one, I'm admitting I'm going, something happened, like I messed up, I'm powerless or unmanageable in a certain area. It was a character defect thing. I'm going to take some action. Step 3, making the amends, examining if it keeps happening over and over again. I want to look at it in 6 and 7 and see what it is that keeps cropping up. So there's a little like quick cycle through the steps in a compact method. And the idea that as time has gone on, the idea of promptly, my definition of promptly has changed as well, right? Like as I got the benefits of being more prompt in my approach to making amends here and promptly admitting when I had caused harm or I was wrong, prompt was early on was like months, it was, it's like, I think I did something wrong there. Let me sit on it, which just made matters worse and did nothing for self-esteem, because I was just wallowing in this, like, yeah, I really should make an amends. Oh, well, I'll wait till I see him again. And like, instead of, addressing it. And as time has gone on, that promptly has gotten much closer. Just last week, I was having a conversation with my wife, and in the moment, if I'm present, I could feel it not working. Like I'm saying it wrong. She's hearing it wrong. I've misinterpreted the situation, and I could feel that because I'm present and go, wait, I'm doing this all wrong. Like literally stop mid-sentence. Versus in the past, and also when I'm, not that I'm perfect with this thing, and it can happen tomorrow. I want to double down on being wrong. Like I want to double down on defending my position. I want to double down on that. Yeah, no, I'm really right here, and you're wrong. Being able to just let go of needing to be right, and but, you know, and
Yeah.
literally like trying to back out of that conversation and that standpoint, which got me into so much trouble to begin with. What I loved, and I think I first heard this, Sandy Beach, great AA speaker. He had talked about step 10, and he goes, it's really just, you know, two things. It's either someone else was wrong, right? That, you know, they had done something to harm me, and the, you know, and in the situation, and I can forgive them, right? Or I was in the wrong and I can make amends and ask for forgiveness, or, you know, some combination percentage thereof, where it's a little bit of both. But he said, like, I'll call my sponsor and I'll say this, and it'll either be make amends or forgive them. I'm like, man, that's simple. You know, hard to get into practice, but really simple. And it's like, in its approach of, if I look at the fact that I'm struggling to just, you know, be better in my daily practice of the recovery program, and I'm up against the world, who to varying degrees don't have any program, or you know, or struggling themselves, have, you know, have felt the, you know, their shortcomings much stronger than I do with a program. Well, geez, if I want forgiveness, I need to, you know, throw some forgiveness out to them, and be a little bit softer in the approach. And that then comes back to me, because then when I see me falling into the same hole, I could go, well, you know, we're all human here, making mistakes, and if we could just, you know, take it a little bit softer, give a little grace, then, you know, then I'm not carrying around that grudge, that anger, that judgment quite as much as I used to. And I'll finish with this, and we'll open it up. In the 12 and 12, at the end of this chapter, it talks about character building, and I love this, because this is really where we're leading to with the self-esteem and how this process works. Learning daily to spot, admit, and correct these flaws is the essence of character building and good living. You know, and that right there is just, you know, in a nutshell, to steal Thom's nutshell term, really what I'm looking to do here is just make it part of a practice, and stick with it.
I hear a lot of people criticize the 12 steps, that they're old-fashioned. I can understand that criticism. They were written back in 1935. Some people that are agnostic have difficulty with the word God used in the steps. For me, I look at the process that's involved, the forces that the 12 steps generate are so powerful that I think they're ageless. There's this interesting phenomena that happens when you work the steps. They create a charge and then a discharge. You know, the first step, we're powerless. Our life has become unmanageable. It creates this charge. You know, we're in big trouble and we don't know what to do. And then step 2 comes along and it says we have hope. That charge, that existential crisis that we have is resolved. What's happening here is parallel to life. We charge ourselves when we breathe in. When we exhale, we discharge. That's the rhythm of life. And the way I love to think about the 12 steps, it's helping us get connected to the rhythm of life so we can learn how to show up in a good way.